So, today we're going to talk about a topic that has probably been covered very frequently, but for those who are new and even those who are just looking for a change in their curriculum before you buy a curriculum, I encourage you to listen to this video. This is a video that you can totally put on while you're folding laundry or cleaning dishes and just kind of think through it. You can always go back if you need to review one of the things that I said, but I hope you enjoy. So let's jump into the video. Hi, my name's Amanda from Learning to Love Well, and today we're going to talk about considering what kind of homeschool curriculum to get. So this is going to come out from a slightly different angle. I'm not going to sit here and walk you through every single type of curriculum that I've ever come across or put my hand on. This is going to be things to consider when selecting a curriculum for your family. So before that, this whole channel is a channel that is devoted to homeschool from a biblical worldview. So we talk about everything from curriculum to homeschool to style types to cheap ideas for hands-on projects, all the things that you can think of related to homeschool. So without further ado, let's talk about the video. Okay, so the first thing I would tell you always is prayerfully consider your homeschool you are looking for. So I will never forget, in one of my oldest child was going into, I believe, 4th grade, and I remember him telling me that he was bored with homeschool. And at the time, I had stuck to really one curriculum. I think we used Horizons and Answers in Genesis. I wasn't really researching a ton of different curriculums or anything else like that. And I prayed. Just pretty simply asked the Lord, and then was doing some research, and we found master books, and we have loved master books ever since. We don't use master books for every subject. We'll actually talk about that a little later. But prayer is such a reliable tool for finding curriculum. If you are a Christian homeschool mom that has a relationship with the Lord is infinitely smarter than we will ever be, and prayerfully talking to God about your curriculum choices, because it is a teaching and training tool for your kids. God is very much invested. He cares about the things that we care about. And so, yes, number one is bring it to the Lord. So on your research, here are some other things to consider. The thing to consider is the intention span. Okay, so this might sound really weird because we're like, well, don't we just make the kids conform to whatever the lesson is? You can. I have 4 kids, and you can have them sit down and do an hour and a half of language A. You can have them sit down and do an hour and a half of math if you would like. There are children who will get more frustrated with longer lessons, and the output that you're going to get in that time would have probably been served better if you would have had a more condensed, compact lesson that got all the things in a shorter amount of time. So definitely think about the age of your child, how long they can actually keep their attention. I have a child who is going into kindergarten next year, well, homeschool kindergarten, but is already in a kindergarten curriculum. And the reason I did that is, one, the curriculum that we're using, I feel like kind of is an in-between pre-K and kindergarten curriculum. Also, I also think that they can handle it. Now, we only do it 3 times a week. On top of that, they're very small lessons, but they're still giving exposure to the things that this child needs to know going into kindergarten. So, yes, consider attention span. I cannot sit down with my kindergartner. Some people might be able to, but then they get fidgety, they get tired, and I want them to also develop the other ways in social, emotional ways as well. So, with that being said, definitely consider the attention span of your child. What you want to consider is what you are trying to get out of it. So there are two, I want to call them like underarching themes in homeschool. You have something called a mastery approach and a spiral approach. If you're not familiar with what this is, a spiral approach is exactly what it sounds like. This is where they will introduce a concept and the concept will kind of get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger while they're still incorporating all the other lessons that they've kind of learned over that year. Mastery, on the other hand, is kind of like you learn fractions for 2 weeks, you master fractions, and then you move on. And you don't touch fractions until the next year. Or you might end like a tiny review, but it's not going to be a consistent basis. These are two different styles how curriculums are made. This is important for you to know if this is something that you want in a spiral approach or mastery. Guys, it's thundering outside. If it gets too loud, I apologize, but I can't control the weather. And we did know this was coming, but that's okay. Yes, spiral approach is going to get bigger and going to keep making concepts bigger and growing on and growing on and growing on. Mastery is a little bit more, let's do it, let's get it done, let's get it all shoved in, and then we're going to move on from it. So for example, I love the spiral approach in math and in phonics. And this is because it's something that they need that to really hone in and get hammered on. But I'm not looking for a spiral approach in everything. I think that if we did a spiral approach in science and still cover everything we need to cover in science, it would get too much, too long, too heavy, and yeah, it would be a lot. So we pick some mastery subjects and some spiral approach subjects. The thing to consider is the right delivery system, or you could call it medium, which is a communication term of just how they get it to you, right? What I mean by that is, do you want hard copy? Do you want PDF files to print out? Do you want something that is already assembled in a book, in a pamphlet, or do you want an online platform? This can open up to a wide variety of different kinds of things. So for example, I want my kids to be able to do paper and pencil math. I do not want them on a screen for that. And I also don't want them on a screen for handwriting. And I don't want them on a screen for language arts. I really want them to know how to do pencil and paper grammar. Now, some things I might consider a screen for in the upcoming is things like ukulele lessons, where they're sitting there and watching someone on the screen and then turning around and watching them and practicing. I'm okay with screen time for that, and I'm okay with using that. Selecting the right medium is definitely important. The next thing is a curriculum that suits your family. Another thing that you want to consider is who is leading this curriculum. So, for example, my Horizons going all the way up through algebra is technically parent-led. This means that I need to actually go through the lessons with them. I have classwork, and then he breaks off, and then he works in all the things, right? But that is not always how it is going to be. So if you have a parent-led curriculum versus a student-led curriculum, which are like the old school paces where it was the child would read a section, answer questions, read a section, answer questions. This is really good for older kids, but it's not so great for younger kids who kind of get off track a little bit. So this is also something that you can consider. Also, now there are online where it can be very much teacher-led by a virtual teacher that you can choose to implement as well. So that is something you also want to consider about how and who you want actually teaching the lessons, whether you want the kids learning the lessons by themselves, the teacher teaching the lessons, and then them breaking off for schoolwork, or a virtual teacher that you're bringing into your home via computer or video, or like a Becca video lessons. That's where they actually bring a teacher into the home and they watch the video and then they do the work. So all up to you. The other thing to consider is, what is your style? And so this is where we start breaking off into, and we could do a entire rabbit trail on this subject. And I've kind of touched on it a little bit in the past, is the style. So you have classical, you have traditional, you have Charlotte Mason style, you have eclectic homeschooler, which I am definitely an eclectic homeschool mom. I love different styles kind of mushed together. You have Montessori style, you have unschooling, you have all of these different types of styles. If you have not figured out what you really like, I will put a link to one of those tests that you can kind of take and get a little bit of an idea based on your personality about what you would like, and even think about how you would like your kids to be taught. So I'll keep that one short and sweet, and I'll just put the link in the bio, and yeah, have a little fun with it. And the seventh thing that I will talk about is consider your time. So for me, this could look like, do you want something to be less descriptive, that you have to do a lot of the legwork yourself, almost like a teacher would have to in a public school setting, where you sit down and you write your lesson plans and kind of piece together curriculum? Or would you like to be kind of have a curriculum that you buy that's very much open and go, that, you know, has supplemental readers, all of the things that you need, or has a supply list at the beginning? Or is this something that you want where it's less hands-on and it's less demand on the teacher? Either way, these are things that are going to be individual to your homeschool. And this is going to be something that you need to consider before, while you're kind of looking at curriculum, because curriculum is beautiful, okay? You kind of start looking through it, you kind of get excited because you're like, man, yes. Okay, editing Amanda here. There is one other category that I did not mention, which is also considering your budget. This kind of seems like a no-brainer, but sometimes we try to make the budget to fit our homeschool rather than our homeschool to fit the budget. And if a budget is causing way more stress because you're having to add extra hours of work in order to pay for it and everything else, it might not necessarily be worth it for your family. So keep that in mind as you are also looking through different curriculums. Just because it's $1,000 for this curriculum for one of your kids doesn't mean it's going to be the best fit, and that's a huge amount of money to drop. So again, be prayerful, be mindful of the money that you have to spend. You can always add things over time when you have time and you're working on your budget throughout the year. Back to the video. It might not work for you. If you have a time constraint where you don't have time to grade, lesson plan, and everything else all throughout the week, it might be better if you go with an open and go curriculum, or even go with a virtual homeschool teacher who grades and spits back the results for some of your core subjects. Whatever will work for you is completely up to you and to the Lord about how you run this homeschool. And I encourage you to take and prayerfully think about it and what you plan, and to really think about what you want out of it and what your end goal is. I think if you homeschool with the end goal in mind, you are way better off than you are if you're just trying to piece it all together and trying to get it all done. So with that being said, Mama, I hope you consider these ideas while you're choosing new curriculum. It's getting to the end of the school year. Master Books is actually running a sale with an additional, I think, 10% off on Master Books through the month of April. I'm not sure of any other sales, but if I find out any more sales, I'll make sure to add it in the videos. Yeah, and so take the time while you're looking through these curriculums and select the things that are most important to you. With that being said, God bless and have a great day.